Blackwood Manor stood at the edge of town, a dilapidated relic of a bygone era. Once the grandest house in the region, decades of neglect had reduced it to a shadow of its former self. The townspeople spoke of it in whispers, sharing tales of ghostly apparitions and eerie sounds that echoed through its empty halls. One brisk autumn evening, Clara Thompson decided to explore the manor. Clara was a budding journalist with a penchant for the supernatural, and Blackwood Manor had always fascinated her. She had heard the stories and felt the pull of its mystery. Armed with a camera, a flashlight, and a notebook, she made her way to the manor just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The front gate, rusted and creaky, protested as Clara pushed it open. The path to the house was overgrown with weeds, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. As she approached the front door, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the crisp evening air. Inside, the manor was dark and silent. Clara's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing faded wallpaper, cobweb-covered chandeliers, and furniture draped in dusty sheets. She began her exploration in the grand foyer, snapping photos and jotting down notes about the state of the house. As she moved from room to room, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Several times, she thought she saw movement out of the corner of her eye, but whenever she turned, there was nothing there. The air grew colder the deeper she ventured into the house. In the drawing room, Clara found an old portrait hanging above the fireplace. It depicted a stern-looking man and a woman with sad eyes. The plaque beneath the portrait read, "Henry and Margaret Blackwood, 1894. Clara felt a pang of sorrow as she looked at Margaret's eyes. They seemed to plead for help. She continued her exploration, climbing the grand staircase to the second floor. The steps creaked ominously under her weight. On the landing, she found several bedrooms, each more decrepit than the last. In one room, the bed was made as if waiting for its occupant to return, though dust lay thick on the linens. As Clara entered the master bedroom, she noticed a journal lying on the bedside table. She picked it up, the leather cover cracking with age. Inside, she found entries written in a flowing script. The journal belonged to Margaret Blackwood. The entries began innocuously enough, detailing daily life at the manor. But as Clara read on, the tone grew increasingly desperate. Margaret wrote of strange occurrences, footsteps in empty hallways, whispers in the dark, and the feeling of being watched. She spoke of Henry's descent into madness, how he would lock himself in the study for days, muttering about the watchers. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine as she read the final entry. "They have taken Henry. I fear they will come for me next. The watchers are always here, always watching." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. Clara jumped, her heart racing. She put the journal in her bag and crept back down the staircase, her flashlight beam trembling. In the dining room, she found a shattered mirror. The temperature had plummeted, and her breath came out in frosty puffs. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. There was no answer, but she felt a presence, something malevolent and cold. Clara turned to leave, but the door slammed shut in front of her. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had to find another way out. She remembered the study that Margaret had mentioned and made her way there. The door was ajar, and inside, the room was in disarray. Papers were scattered everywhere, and the smell of old books filled the air. In the center of the room stood a large oak desk, and on it, a single candle burned with a ghostly blue flame. Clara approached the desk, her flashlight flickering. She saw a piece of parchment with a strange symbol drawn on it, a circle with intricate runes and an eye in the center. As she touched the parchment, the flame extinguished, plunging the room into darkness. The whispers began then, soft and insidious. They filled her mind, making it hard to think. Clara clutched her head, trying to block them out. She had to get out of there, but the room felt like it was closing in on her. Gathering her courage, she ran for the door. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. She stumbled down the hallway, the walls seeming to pulse with a life of their own. The front door loomed ahead, her only escape. Just as she reached it, a cold hand grabbed her shoulder. Clara screamed and wrenched herself free, throwing the door open and sprinting into the night. She didn't stop running until she was far from the manor, her breath coming in ragged gasps. When she finally looked back, Blackwood Manor was dark and silent once more. Clara knew she had barely escaped with her life. The Watchers were real, and they would never let her forget. She vowed to uncover the truth about Blackwood Manor, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, Clara researched the history of Blackwood Manor. She discovered that Henry Blackwood had been a renowned occultist, obsessed with contacting the spirit world. His experiments had opened a doorway to another realm, unleashing malevolent entities, the Watchers. These spirits had claimed the manor and its inhabitants, trapping their souls in an eternal nightmarish limbo. Clara knew she had to return to the manor, armed with knowledge and protective charms. She contacted a local paranormal expert, Dr. Samuel Harris, and together they devised a plan to banish the Watchers and free the trapped souls. On the next new moon, Clara and Dr. Harris returned to Blackwood Manor. They set up a circle of salt and lit candles imbued with protective herbs. Dr. Harris began chanting an ancient incantation, calling upon benevolent spirits to aid them. As the ritual progressed, the air grew colder and the ground trembled. The Watchers appeared, their glowing eyes filled with anger. They lunged at Clara and Dr. Harris, but the protective circle held them at bay. Dr. Harris continued the incantation, his voice growing louder and more commanding. The Watchers screamed, their forms flickering and writhing. With a final, thunderous chant, Dr. Harris completed the ritual. The Watchers vanished in a blinding flash of light, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Exhausted but victorious, Clara and Dr. Harris left the manor. The spirits of Henry and Margaret Blackwood appeared before them, their faces peaceful for the first time. "Thank you," Margaret whispered, before they faded into the light. Blackwood Manor stood silent and empty, finally at peace. Clara had uncovered the truth and freed the trapped souls, but she knew that the scars of her encounter would remain. She had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, forever changed by the haunting of Blackwood Manor.